The dining room of the Aldercroft estate went quiet the moment Vivian Holloway set down her wine glass. 36 people turned. Liam Rafferty stood near the sideboard in a jacket that did not belong to him, borrowed from his brother-in-law 2 hours before, the sleeves a half-inch too short. Vivian's voice carried the way old money carries. Not loud, not sharp, just certain of its own reach. "Fix things for a living, Mr. Rafferty. That's admirable. But my daughter will not be spending her life with a man who carries a toolbox." Nadia stood between them. She did not move. She did not speak. Liam looked at Vivian Holloway for a long moment. He did not raise his voice. He did not tighten his jaw. He said nothing at all. In the inside pocket of the borrowed jacket was a folded document from a Toronto solicitor named Gerald Osey, delivered 3 days earlier to the job site on Adelaide Street. Liam had not opened it. He had not yet decided what opening it meant. Vivian picked up her glass. She smiled the smile of a woman who had never once been wrong in a room she owned. She did not know she had just insulted the man who held 41% of Holloway properties. October came to Halifax the way it always did. Cold from the Atlantic first, then the smell of wood smoke from the north end, then the light going orange by 4 in the afternoon. Liam Rafferty signed the lease on the Cedar Hill rental on the 3rd. Paid 4 months in advance with a bank draft drawn on an account in Calgary that no one in Halifax would think to question. The house was a semi-detached on a quiet street 2 blocks from the Arm. 3 bedrooms, a backyard with a rusted gate, a birch tree that knocked against the kitchen window when the wind came off the water. Liam took the smaller bedroom. He gave Isla the larger one. Isla was 7. She had opinions about this. On the second morning, she found a loose step on the back porch and demonstrated it to Liam in the way 7-year-olds demonstrate things, which is mostly by jumping on it repeatedly until someone pays attention. Liam looked at it. He said the wood was soft from last winter. He said he would fix it. He did not fix it that week. He did not fix it the week after. The step stayed loose because the only way to make sense of leaving Calgary was to let the small broken things in Halifax be exactly as small and broken as they were. Some things needed time before they were worth fixing. Holloway Properties' flagship project that fall was the Aldercroft restoration on Barrington Street. A 1904 stone and brick building that had been a textile warehouse, then a printing house, then 30 years of nothing. The city had designated it heritage. The Holloway family had bought it in 2019 and let it sit until the carrying costs became impossible to ignore. Liam walked the site with the outgoing project manager on a Wednesday morning. The man pointed at the failing lintel above the second floor, arched windows, the basement moisture intrusion, the original Douglas fir floor joists that had been partially sistered at some point in the 1970s by someone who had not understood what they were doing. Liam listened. He had read the structural assessment twice on the flight from Calgary. The project meeting was Friday morning. He arrived 8 minutes early in a clean canvas work shirt and the kind of boots that had seen real job sites. He spread the drawings across the table himself because no one else in the room had moved to do it. Nadia Holloway walked in at 9:03. No assistant. A leather folio under her arm. She was 38. She introduced herself to him by his first name. She did not introduce him to anyone else. Liam opened the drawings. He read them the way a surgeon reads a scan. Not sequentially, but looking for the thing that would kill you if you missed it. He flipped to the foundation detail, tapped a section at the northeast corner and said quietly, "This wall has been carrying load it wasn't designed for since they removed the interior partition in 2003. We touch anything on the west elevation before we deal with this, and we're rebuilding from the basement." Nadia looked at the sheet, then she looked at him. The look held 2 seconds longer than a project meeting look should have held. From the corridor, there was a sound, a small one. Isla had been sitting in the reception area with a library book and had followed the hallway around a corner, further than she was supposed to. She was looking through the glass panel of the meeting room door, dark hair loose on one side where she'd pulled out her own elastic. Nadia saw her first. She smiled, the particular unguarded smile of someone who was not expecting a child to be looking at them through a window. Liam saw the smile. He stepped to the door, opened it, said, "Isla, lobby. I'll be 10 minutes." Isla went. He closed the door without looking at Nadia and they finished the meeting on schedule. That evening, at the kitchen table of the Cedar Hill house, He took an envelope from the inner pocket of his jacket and set it on the table without opening it. He made Isla pasta with butter because she had requested it specifically. He helped her with the 7 words she'd spelled wrong on her practice sheet. He read her 2 chapters of the book she'd picked at the library. After she was asleep, he sat at the kitchen table alone. He opened a different envelope, one he had kept since Calgary. Inside was one photograph. Sorcha, taken in 2013 on the front steps of the Aldercroft building, before it was boarded up. She had been 29. She was wearing a green rain jacket, laughing at something off camera, the stone arch of the doorway behind her. She would have been 39 now. He turned the photograph face down on the table. He sat with it that way for a long time. 3 weeks into the demolition phase, Liam went through the subcontractor bids on a Saturday morning and did not stop until Sunday night. By Monday, he had his findings written on a single sheet of paper in his own handwriting. The millwork and interior heritage joinery package was priced 42% above comparable projects in the region. The vendor was Stonegate Millwork and Restoration Limited. The sole director of Stonegate was a man named Philip Holloway, Vivian's younger brother, Nadia's uncle. A different contractor would have let it pass. The number was inside the budget envelope. The work would get done. The premium would dissolve into the project cost, and the project cost would dissolve into the Holloway balance sheet, where it had apparently been dissolving for years. Liam had seen this before in other cities and other families. He did not let it pass. He left the annotated sheet on Nadia's desk at the site office at 7:15 before she arrived. He had included 3 comparable millwork projects from Ontario and New Brunswick, a simple calculation of the cumulative cost to the company over a 5-year pattern of similar overcharges, and a 1-line reference to the fiduciary obligations of corporate directors under Canadian common law. He signed it with his initials only. L.R. Nadia read it at 8:02. She read it again at 8:17. She did not call Philip. She did not call Vivian. She did not walk to the site trailer and ask Liam Rafferty what kind of tradesman signs a bid analysis with a citation to corporate fiduciary law. She sat at her desk for a long time looking at the Barrington Street building of the site office at the stone arch of the 2nd floor that had stood there for 120 years, and then she opened her email and requested a quiet rebid of the millwork package through standard arm's-length procurement. The rebid came in 23% lower. The contract was reissued the following Thursday. Philip Holloway called Vivian on Friday afternoon. Vivian listened. She did not call Nadia. She opened her laptop and typed a name into a search bar. Liam Rafferty, Contractor, Calgary. The results were thin: a registered trade business in Alberta, a general contractor's license in 3 provinces, a small photograph from a university fundraising dinner, 4 years old, in which Liam stood in a dark suit beside a woman whose face was turned slightly away from the camera. Vivian closed the laptop. She called her assistant. "Pull whatever you can find on the project manager running the Aldercroft restoration." Quietly. That same week, Nadia passed Liam on the Aldercroft's main staircase. She was carrying a sight binder. He was carrying a laser level. They did not stop. She said only that the millwork rebid had come in cleaner than expected. He said he was glad to hear it. Neither of them broke stride. But Nadia turned at the landing and watched him walk toward the 2nd floor. She watched him the way someone watches a door they have been told all their life is locked from the outside. She had known for years that Philip's company was bleeding Holloway Properties. She had brought it to her mother twice. Both times Vivian had called it family loyalty and changed the subject. Both times Nadia had let it go, because letting it go was the texture of her life inside that company. A life made of accommodations so quiet she had stopped hearing them as a sound. And here was a man who had looked at 4 pages of drawings and 1 column of numbers and seen exactly what she had been seeing for 6 years. She did not know who he was. She did not know what he'd built before Halifax. She did not know whose name was on his lease, or whose grave he had driven 3 hours to visit on a long weekend in September. She only knew the analysis, and the analysis was right. For the first time in years, she understood that she was not the only one looking. The Saturday morning in mid-November was the kind of Halifax morning that rewards people who dress for it. The light came off the arm, cold and low and very clear. Liam brought Isla to the Aldercroft because she had asked, and the demo crew had the day off, and there was nothing structurally dangerous about the main floor. He let her sketch in the front room while he went upstairs to measure a window frame that had been out of square since before either of them was born. Nadia came in through the side door at 10:20. She had not expected anyone to be there. She came on Saturdays because the building on Saturdays felt like what it was meant to be. A building, not a Holloway asset. She came because she could walk the rooms without anyone watching to see which rooms she favored. She found Isla sitting cross-legged on a drop cloth, drawing on the back of an old blueprint with a set of pencil crayons she had apparently brought in a coat pocket for exactly this purpose. Nadia sat down on the edge of an overturned bucket nearby and asked what she was drawing. Isla said she was drawing the window because the light came through it in a way that was interesting and also sad. Nadia looked at the window. She did not disagree. She asked Isla if she'd been to Halifax before. Isla said no. She said they had come from Calgary because her dad had a job here. She said she thought Halifax smelled like the ocean in a good way. Then she said, without looking up from the drawing, "My mom died. She really liked old buildings." Nadia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I had someone like that too, my cousin. She used to bring me here when I was young before it was shut down. She told me that when you restore a building, you're not trying to make it new. You're trying to make it honest again." She paused. She was the one who taught me how to read a balance sheet. She said numbers were just another kind of architecture. Isla looked up for the first time. What was her name? Nadia said, Sorcha. Isla looked at the name for a moment the way children look at words they are tasting. Then she went back to the window drawing. Upstairs, the second-floor window frame was open 2 inches for the cold air. Liam had been measuring the same sill for 4 minutes without moving the tape. He set the tape down on the floor very carefully. He stood at the window and looked at the wall across from him and did not move. His daughter was talking to a woman who had never met Sorcha about Sorcha. And the woman was telling his daughter about a cousin she had loved. And the cousin and the wife were the same person. And no one in the building knew except him. He came down the back stairs 11 minutes later. He left his boots at the bottom out of habit and walked across the main floor in his socks. Isla ran to him. Nadia stood. She looked at him with a different kind of attention than she had used in any meeting. He looked back at her the same way. Neither of them spoke. After a moment, Nadia said, "She used to leave her boots at the door too. She said it was the only respectful thing to do in an old building. Then, she was here once in a green jacket, maybe 2013. Liam said, "I know the jacket, I have a photograph." That was all. He did not explain. She did not ask. They stood in the middle of the main floor, while Isla's pencil scratched quietly across the print in the corner, and the thing that had just happened between them became a thing they were both now carrying, together. Without having agreed to it, Vivienne returned from Toronto in the first week of December, in the particular mood she always brought back from meetings she had not won. She had spent 2 days with a private equity firm, discussing the covenant structure on the Holloway Properties preferred debt, and had not enjoyed the conversation. She was at her office on Spring Garden Road by 6 on a Tuesday evening. She walked past Nadia's door without looking in. The Holloway Foundation Winter Gala was scheduled for the 14th. Black tie, 120 guests. The mayor's office, the Heritage Society, 3 board members who had been drifting and needed to be reminded what family meant. The event was at the Aldercroft itself, a soft launch of the building before the official public opening in the spring. Vivienne had insisted. The optics of holding a heritage gala in a building they had saved would help with the city. These were the kinds of calculations Vivienne made in her sleep. On the 8th of December, Nadia found an envelope on her desk. Creamstock, no label. Her name in Vivienne's handwriting. It was not a question. It was a paragraph and a half. At the gala, Vivienne wrote, she would be announcing Nadia's engagement to Karsten Vollmer, whose family held the Vollmer Group, 2 generations of commercial real estate in Atlantic Canada. The families had discussed the matter informally over a dinner in October. Karsten was suitable. The alliance made sense for both companies. Greta would manage the announcement details. Nadia would understand. Nadia had met Karsten Vollmer twice. The second time he had talked about his boat for 40 minutes. She walked down the hall to Vivienne's office. She closed the door behind her. She did not sit. "You didn't ask me. I don't need to ask you. Mother, you will marry someone who strengthens what this family has built. Karsten's family has held their portfolio through 2 recessions. They are not sentimental. They understand what an alliance between our companies would mean. You are deciding my life. I am protecting the company, which is also your life, whether you've chosen to see it that way or not. Nadia stood in the office for a long still moment. Then she walked out. She did not go back to her desk. She drove south along the waterfront with the windows down in December, the cold coming off the harbor in sheets. She drove past the office. She drove past the building she had grown up in. She drove past the street her grandmother had lived on. She did not slow at any of them. She drove to the Aldercroft. She parked on the side street. She went around to the rear entrance, the one the crew used, and sat down on the stone step at the back with her coat on, and her scarf pulled up, and her hands wrapped around her own elbows. It was 8:30. It was 4 degrees. Liam came around the back of the building at 8:42. He had been doing a final walk of the basement with a flashlight. He saw her on the step. He came across the gravel path without rushing. He sat down on the step below hers, one level down, and set a thermos of coffee on the stone beside her without saying anything. She wrapped both hands around it. She did not drink for a moment. Then she did. The harbor lights moved on the water. A container ship sat at anchor out past McNabb's Island, lit up and enormous and patient. 27 minutes passed. Neither of them spoke. When Nadia finally stood, she rested one hand briefly on his shoulder. Just once on the way past. The way a person touches the railing of a staircase they trust to hold them. Then she walked down the side street to her car and drove home. Liam sat on the step alone for another hour. He did not turn the flashlight back on. The 14th of December arrived clear and cold. The Aldercroft on Barrington Street had been cleaned and lit for the gala with the kind of care that costs more than it looks. String lights through the main hall, candles on every surface, the original stone walls making the whole thing feel like something that had been waiting 100 years for exactly this use. A string trio in the corner, 120 guests in coats they had not checked because the cloakroom was not finished yet. The catering was maritime, chowder and rapie pie and smoked salmon on dark bread because Vivienne understood optics. The wine was an Ontario Riesling. The flowers were white and sparse and very expensive. Liam was there as site lead. The temporary lighting installation was under the project scope and the site supervisor was expected, on premises, through the event to manage the power distribution and the 2 dimmer panels near the old loading bay. He wore the same dark jacket he had worn to the original project meeting. The shoulders fit. In the inside pocket was Gerald Osie's document, still folded, still unopened. He had not yet decided. Nadia saw him across the room at 8:10. She crossed to him. She did not say hello. She stopped 2 feet away, looked at the cable run he was pretending to check, and said, "Thank you for the coffee." He said, "Of course." She said, "She's announcing it tonight." He said, "I know." They stood there for a moment, talking about nothing the room could see. Karsten Vollmer found Nadia from the direction of the bar at 8:17. He smiled the smile of a man who had been told what was about to happen. Nadia took one small step back. Karsten's smile did not change, but the step was visible. 3 people near the string trio saw it. Vivienne across the room saw it. Vivienne set down her wine glass. She walked to the old loading bay where Liam stood by the cable panel and spoke to him alone by the window. She had a check in her hand. "Triple your project fee, Mr. Rafferty. Bank draft. Your crew finishes the Aldercroft through your second in command. You leave Halifax before the new year and you take the child with you. The Holloway family wishes you well in Calgary." Lamb looked at the check. He looked at her. He said, "No, thank you." Vivienne's expression shifted. She had expected negotiation. She had expected anger. The quiet was worse than both. She walked back to the center of the room and lifted her glass. The sound thinned around her. "Before I welcome our guests to this extraordinary building, I need to address something that has troubled me this evening." The room turned. There is a tradesman in this hall who has misunderstood his place in this project, and in this city. She looked across the room to where Liam stood. "You are here to fix what's broken, Mr. Rafferty, not to insert yourself into a family that built what you're fixing. I think everyone in this room understands the distinction." Nadia went still. She did not look at her mother. She looked at Liam. Liam did not move. In his inside pocket, the document from Gerald Osie sat exactly where it had sat for 6 days. Vivienne raised her glass. She did not know what she had done. 4 days after the gala, on the morning of the 18th, Gerald Osie called Liam's Cedar Hill house from his car. He gave one address. the Aldercroft basement, and one time, 2:30 in the afternoon, and one instruction. Gerald was 58. He had been corporate counsel to the Holloway family for 22 years. He had come to Sorcha's memorial in Calgary in the spring of 2021 and had sat in the back of the hall and left before anyone could speak to him. Liam had seen him from the front row. He had not known the man's name then. He should have. Gerald had been the only person at that memorial wearing a small silver pin on his lapel, the old Holloway Properties logo, a stylized arch, the kind issued to senior staff in the 90s. Sorcha would have recognized it. Sorcha noticed everything. Gerald unlocked the basement door from the inside after Liam knocked. He locked it again behind them. He set 2 folders on the old workbench. Ravenscroft Capital, a limited partnership registered in Alberta. Principal yourself through 9 nominee companies incorporated across British Columbia, Ontario, and federally. Current position in Holloway Properties voting shares, 41%. Accumulated between February 2018 and last September. Liam said nothing. He had known the number to the second decimal. Gerald opened the second folder. Vivienne's restructuring in 2020. Spring, during the shutdowns. She executed a credit facility against the company's preferred share class, using those shares as collateral to cover operating losses in the hotel division. She underestimated how long the disruption would last. By October of that year, she had quietly defaulted on the facility. The preferred shares were sold through 2 intermediary funds to meet the margin call. He paused. Both intermediary funds were nominees of yours. She sold to the man she would later try to write a check to in her own building. Liam closed his eyes briefly. He opened them. Gerald said, "There's a board meeting on the 22nd, Wednesday, 9 o'clock. The agenda includes a strategic review. The real item, buried under that language, is a motion to remove Nadia from her position as Chief Operating Officer and consolidate operational authority in Vivienne's office. Vivienne has the votes among the family directors. She will frame Nadia's removal as a governance matter. She will reference the millwork rebid. She will reference the step at the gala. She will do it cleanly, and it will be done before lunch." He looked at Liam across the workbench. "I have known about this motion for 9 weeks. I am bound by solicitor-client privilege on my work for Vivienne. I am not bound to disclose to her the work I have done in parallel, ensuring your filings were properly registered and completed. I have walked a line I am not certain I would walk twice." He let that sit. "You can stop this on Wednesday, but only if you are ready to stop being Liam Rafferty, the contractor." Liam stood in the stone basement for a long time. He thought about Sorcha. He thought about Isla upstairs in the Cedar Hill house, asleep with her library book open on the duvet. He thought about Nadia on the back step with a thermos, not asking him for anything. He thought about what Sorcha had said in the last month. In the particular clarity that comes when a person knows they are running out of time. She had not asked for revenge. She had asked him to make it right. She had said the company was the best version of what her family had built before the family turned on itself. She had said she wanted it to last beyond the people who were ruining it, and she had said one other thing. She had said her cousin Nadia would be ready. When the time came, she would be ready. Liam nodded once. Gerald slid the second folder across the workbench. "Then I'll see you Wednesday, December 22nd. Liam rode the elevator to the 14th floor of Holloway Tower alone. He wore a dark suit he had not worn since a board meeting in Calgary 4 years ago. No work jacket. No scuffed boots. His shoes were polished. Gerald Osie's document, now opened and annotated, sat in his inside breast pocket. The Holloway board convened at 9. 10 directors. Vivienne at the head of the table. Nadia to her left in a gray suit, her hands resting flat on a closed leather folio. Gerald at his usual chair, 2 folders at his elbow. Vivienne opened. Before the operational reports, the chair moves under the governance provisions to initiate a strategic review of the office of the COO, effective immediately, with interim authority consolidated in the office of the chair pending a full board assessment. This is not a reflection on Nadia's years of service. It reflects the company's needs at this moment. Nadia did not look at her. She kept her hands flat. The boardroom door opened. Liam walked in. He walked to the empty chair at the far end of the table, the one that had been Vivienne's father's chair, and which had not been used since his death 8 years ago, and he sat down. Nadia turned. Her breath caught once, small enough that only Gerald noticed. Vivienne laughed. A single, short sound. Mr. Rafferty, I'm not sure what the site manager believes he's doing in a closed board session. Gerald stood. He took the top folder from his stack and passed it down the table until it stopped in front of Vivienne. Madam Chair, the site manager is the company's largest voting shareholder. The room did not move. Vivienne opened the folder. 41% of voting common. Ravenscroft Capital as general partner. 9 nominee entities, each appearing in the share registry as a separate institutional holder. Notarized, audited, certified by Federal Corporate Counsel. She read the cover page once, then again. Her face did not break. Her face showed the particular stillness of a woman who has just understood that the room she is standing in has belonged to someone else for 4 years. Her right hand on the table gave her away. The thumb moved once, against the edge of her index finger. A dry, small motion. Gerald had seen that motion before, in her father in 2009, when a deal had come apart quietly and without warning. He said nothing. The other directors received copies. Liam spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet. He did not stand. Under the shareholder rights provisions in the corporate constitution, a holder of 41% of voting common, in conjunction with the independent directors on record, may by written shareholder resolution remove the chair and appoint a successor without further board approval. I'm exercising that right today, with the support of the 4 independent directors who were briefed by Gerald yesterday afternoon. He set a signed page on the table. Vivienne Holloway is removed as chair, effective immediately. Nadia Holloway is appointed chair and chief executive, effective immediately. Gerald Ossie is confirmed as general counsel under a revised independent mandate. The strategic review motion is withdrawn. Vivienne stood. She looked at the page. She looked at Liam. She looked at her daughter. She walked out without speaking. The door closed behind her. Nadia sat at the head of the table. Her hands were still flat on the leather folio. She looked at Liam once, the look of a person who has just been handed something heavy and real. He stood. He crossed to the door. He left her the chair. Friday evening, 6:40. Nadia parked on Cedar Hill Street and sat behind the wheel for 2 full minutes before she got out. Isla was already asleep. Liam had told her over soup that Miss Nadia might come by, and Isla had said okay, the way children say okay about things they understand before the adults have worked it out. Liam opened the door before she knocked. He poured 2 glasses of rye. Sorcha's brand, a small Alberta distillery, Sorcha had discovered on a trip west in 2015 and refused to stop buying afterward. He set them on the kitchen table. He sat across from her and waited. Nadia wrapped both hands around the glass. She did not drink. Who was Sorcha to you? Lamb had thought about this question for 5 years. He had never said the answer out loud. She was my wife. The kitchen clock made its sound. Outside, the birch branch scraped the window once. Sorcha Holloway Rafferty. She came to Calgary in the fall of 2015, 8 months after your mother removed her from the company. She had been VP of Development. Vivienne called it a performance issue. The vote was 7-3. Sorcha left the Holloway Tower on a Tuesday morning and did not go back. Nadia's eyes did not move from his face. I met her 4 months later. She was consulting for a hospitality firm on 8th Avenue. We married in October 2016. Isla was born in 2018. Sorcha was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, summer of 2019. She lived 20 months. She died on the 16th of March, 2021. Nadia made a sound that was not a word. She kept working until the 8th month. She wrote a series of long essays on the architectural history of maritime commercial buildings, which a press in Halifax published in the spring of 2022 and which is still in print. She named our daughter on a November afternoon. She chose Isla because she had read that islands develop their own weather, separate from everywhere around them. He paused. In her last weeks she asked me one thing, not revenge. She did not use that word. She asked me to make it right. She said the company was the best version of what her family had been capable of being. She said she wanted it to outlive the people who had broken it, and she said one other thing. He stopped. She said her cousin Nadia would know what to do with it. When the time came, she said, she told me you were the only one in that family who ever looked at the numbers the same way she did. Nadia cried then, quietly, without making herself stop, the way a person cries when they have been polite about grief for so long that they have forgotten what the other option feels like. Liam did not move toward her. He let her have it. He sat across the table and watched the birch tree outside the window and stayed still. in the way that certain people learn to stay still, not from coldness but from understanding that some things need the space. When she lifted her face, her eyes were red. She asked one question. "Why didn't you take it for yourself?" Liam answered without hesitating. "Because Sorcha would have given it to you." Nadia closed her eyes. A breath went out of her, long and slow, the kind of breath a person releases when they have finally been told the thing that makes everything before it makes sense. She opened her eyes. She picked up the glass. They drank. Outside on Cedar Hill Street, somewhere down the block, a car door closed, and the Halifax night carried on without them, the way it always had and always would. January settled over Halifax in the way that January does. Without ceremony, with a great deal of wind off the harbor, and with the particular silence of a city that has stopped pretending the cold is temporary. 3 weeks into the new year, Holloway Properties ran its first full board meeting under Nadia's authority. The stabilization plan in favor. Philip Holloway's Stonegate millwork contract was audited and found to contain 6 years of systematic overcharging across 11 Holloway projects. The matter was settled privately, with full restitution and Philip's quiet exit from any company business. Vivian was, by report, in Palm Beach. The Aldercroft restoration entered its final phase. Liam's crew was down to 9 people, the ones who stayed for finish work, the patient kind, where men who had spent 30 years in construction would slow down and take their time with a single piece of trim because the building had waited 100 years and deserved the effort. Liam had stopped checking his Calgary inbox. The Calgary office ran itself the way it always had. He had not told them he wasn't coming back. He hadn't needed to say it yet because he hadn't said it to himself in so many words. But he knew. He had known since November, since the Saturday morning in the main floor of the Aldercroft, when his daughter had said Sorcha's name to a stranger, and the stranger had known it. On the Saturday of the 3rd week, Nadia came to the site in jeans and a coat, and walked through the building the way a person walks through a building they are responsible for. Not visiting, but present. Isla found her first. She came running down the main hall with a piece of paper folded in both hands. She stopped in front of Nadia and held it up with the gravity of a 7-year-old presenting something she has considered carefully. "I drew you one." Nadia took it. She unfolded it with care, a drawing in pencil crayon on the back of an old site form. 3 figures standing under a tree with no leaves, the branches detailed in the way children detail things they have looked at closely. The tallest figure wore a work jacket, the middle figure wore a long coat. The smallest had dark hair that curled slightly at the ends the way Isla's did when she forgot to brush it. The tree had a bird sitting in the upper left branch, small and precise. Isla had taken care with the bird. Nadia looked at the drawing for a long moment. She did not say it was beautiful. She did not say thank you. She knelt down to Isla's level on the old Douglas fir floor, and she refolded the paper along its crease, with the attention of someone handling something that does not come twice. She put it in the inside pocket of her coat. Isla nodded once, satisfied. She ran off down the hall, toward the back room where she had been monitoring a situation involving a gap in the baseboard that she believed a mouse had considered. Liam stopped working on the 2nd floor some time before. He stood at the open landing looking down into the main hall. That evening, after the crew had gone and the site trailer was dark, Nadia and Liam sat on the stone steps at the back of the Aldercroft. The harbor was quiet. The cold was sharp but not cruel. The light above the loading bay door threw a thin yellow stripe across the stone. Her hand rested on the step beside her. His hand rested on the step beside him. 3 inches between them. Neither of them moved. Neither of them needed to. After a long while she said, "The official opening is in April. There's going to be a dedication for the building. I want the garden out back named." She paused. "I've already decided what I'm calling it." He turned his head and looked at her in the half-dark. "What will you call it?" she told him. He looked down at the stone between his hand and hers. The corner of his mouth moved barely, the way it moves on a person who is keeping something from breaking open in public. She would have liked that, he said. The harbor wind moved through the stone arch above them. The city made its quiet city sounds. April came as April comes to Halifax, tentatively, with cold mornings and warm afternoons and the magnolias on the South End streets blooming before anyone has properly agreed that winter is finished. The Aldercroft opened on a Saturday. 60 people in the walled courtyard at the back of the building. the one that had been a loading yard, and was now laid with reclaimed stone and 2 young birch trees, and a single bench set against the original brick wall. The Heritage Board sent its chair. The city councilor for the district came herself. Gerald came in a dark coat and stood near the back. He had brought 3 white flowers in a glass jar. He set them at the base of the new bench before the ceremony began. He did not sign his name to it. He had known Sorcha since she was 22 years old, and signing names to things had never been how he showed it. A small bronze plaque had been set into the brick wall at the back of the courtyard. The Sorcha Holloway Rafferty Courtyard. Nadia spoke for 5 minutes without notes. She did not speak about the company. She did not speak about her mother, or about the board meeting in December, or about the 7 decades of Holloway history that had led to this building being bought and neglected, and finally, at last, restored. She spoke about a cousin who had taught her to read a balance sheet when she was 17. She spoke about a woman who had said that restoring a building meant making it honest again. She spoke about a name she had not let herself say out loud for 4 years. She said it 3 times. Sorcha, Sorcha, Sorcha. Then she stepped back from the small lectern, and the people in the courtyard were quiet for a moment, in the way that people are quiet when they have heard something true. Liam stood at the back of the crowd with Isla on his shoulders. Isla's hands were on top of his head. She was watching Nadia the whole time. When the crowd began to move, Nadia walked to them. She did not speak first. Isla leaned down from Liam's shoulders and reached out one hand. Nadia took it. The 3 of them stood under the birch trees in the April light. After a moment, Nadia said quietly, not looking away from the plaque, "Don't go back to Calgary." Lamb looked at her for a long time. He did not smile. He looked at her the way a man looks at something he has been moving toward for years without knowing the name of the destination. "We weren't planning to. A beat. If that's an invitation," he said, "we'll take it." She nodded. He nodded. Isla grinned then, wide and certain and uncomplicated, because she was 7, and 7 understands what staying means before the grown-ups have finished deciding on the word. The 3 of them walked down the stone path together toward the courtyard gate. The April light came off the harbor in long gold strips and lay across the reclaimed stone at their feet. The gate clicked shut behind them. She had asked them to stay. They had been staying all along.